If you compare beer with bratwurst,
and cheese with wine,
or even whiskey,
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons,
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories. Ed Gein inspired the terrifying horror movie characters of Norman Bates from the 1960 movie Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and even Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. But as the inspiration of those bone-chilling characters, I think you will wind up agreeing with me after hearing this episode that Ed Gein as a real-life monster simply falls a little short. In reality, Ed was an old, feeble-looking farmer who, for the most part, kept to himself. He was just doing his best to heal from his broken heart. After losing the only woman he had ever loved, it seemed as though Ed's every action served to preserve her memory, her living space, her possessions, the notion of her presence, and maybe even the feel of her skin. What could be more perfectly paired with Valentine's Day than the tragic love story between a man and his mother, and the gruesome lengths he was willing to go to hang on to their very, very disturbing love?
Well, that sounds interesting. I don't know a whole lot about Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I know quite a bit about like the big ones.
Yeah.
And I know his name is in there. I've always known that at least Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based off him. And I think I knew Psycho was as well. What was the third one you said?
It's Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill, that's right. That's
you
the
puts
one.
the lotion on the skin.
Yeah. That's the one. I know anytime I hear that, I'm always like, oh, really?
Yes.
But then I start thinking about the movie. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, if the other two are in there, then
yeah,
I could see that as well. What's interesting, and I think what I'm most excited for in hearing this story is why didn't they just make a movie on this guy when they could have, when they got three
you are gonna see
really
why.
good characters from them.
There's
I'm excited, but then I'm also kind of like, is this gonna be just kind of a boring story? Or
yeah, I think it is. But there's
way to pump up the crowd right in the beginning.
First of all, this, in addition to just being this really macabre love story, is also a gift to our listeners, because I don't know if you remember when we did a Ted Bundy episode, we said we were going to create the Bracelet series.
That's right. Yep,
Ed Gein is a member of the Bracelet series, so we're finally doing something we said we were going to do, and this is an additional episode in the Bracelet series. Bigger picture, I think there's something so sociological about understanding at the time he committed these crimes how absolutely horrendous they seemed to the American people. Now, what he did probably wouldn't even get like a tagline in an SNL skit. Like,
I don't know what you've already mentioned.
So I think they took the root of who he was as a person and made it modern scary.
Yeah. I'm sure whatever he does would definitely make it, you know, when you're on like an article, like you clicked on an article from whatever social media, because they had a clickbaity title.
Yeah.
So you get on it, and then when you always see like the other articles. I'm sure it would make those, you know, they would definitely be able to clickbait it. They'd make a little bit of money off of it.
When all is said and described, whether or not you think he is deserving of being connected to all those really terrifying people. Because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is by far my favorite horror movie. The idea of him as this creepy butchering, it gave me chills.
You like the wrong one.
And then you look at Ed Gein and you're like, I could take him. I'm not so concerned about that guy.
Right.
But
hey, I just want to say, You like the wrong Texas
No,
Chainsaw.
I do not.
You never saw the
No, we
original
have absolutely watched it.
until we watched it. Like, what, a year ago?
No, I think it was a little.
It wasn't that long ago.
We've so many
but
Valentine's Days together. I'm sure we watched it prior to a year ago.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes.
Why would
It's the most romantic thing we could think of.
I feel like we watched it during Halloween, but that's neither here nor there. The original is one of the, I think still holds up as one of the most dark, terrifying movies. It's just terrifying. And it is part of the feeling, like the grittiness of the film.
You're really harshing my romantic buzz right now.
Well,
what are we drinking?
Hey, Jessica Biel did all right too.
I love that version. Yeah. I will forever love that
I will
version.
say this, after watching with you again, I believe I saw it in theaters, wasn't super impressed at the time. Watching with you again, I have more appreciation for it. But you also know what's coming, like as far as like what type of movie to expect.
Yeah.
Anyway, we always pair our stories with the drink, thus the name Perfectly Paired With. So today we're pairing the story with
something romantic,
a romantic drink. So Katie, we were discussing a romantic drink, and she had the idea of rosé
because it's pink.
Yeah, it's pink. She likes it, and it would work. I was like, okay, that's fine.
And that's not what he got at all.
No. I found one we could kind of it's a perfect compromise of a drink. We'll see how we both like it. I didn't even know they had this, but it's vodka.
Okay.
Vodka. It's rosé flavored vodka.
Okay.
Made by Svedka. Which we have featured. We featured that brand on. We did the Sweden.
I thought that was Absolute.
No, maybe it was. Yeah, either way. Actually, yeah, I think you're right.
It was.
Because I think, anyway. Yeah, so it's a Svedka rosé flavored vodka.
All right. Cheers. It's not as pretty pink as a true rosé.
It's pretty pink, though. Ours have been sitting with ice in them for a little bit. That's why it's not as pink. But that bottle is pretty pink.
It tastes like rose water. Like I feel like we just are having it over ice. But I think if you put like a splash of soda, it'd probably be pretty lovely.
Yeah. I also think we need to rush through this one so we can actually taste it. Because this is very watered down.
Okay. Well, a very watered down pink drink in honor of Valentine's Day.
Before you get into it, you need to actually take a drink.
I did. I did.
Once, if you haven't listened to us before, maybe nobody even notices this, but I notice it every single episode.
I like it very much.
Katie takes like a sip.
It tastes like.
Here we are talking over each other.
I know.
I was telling a story.
I'm sorry.
In the beginning, we just introduced the drink. Katie takes one sip, and then she gets going on the story. Yeah. And then it's just me drinking by myself. And I have to actually remind her to take drinks, which definitely have been heard during our recordings. But anyway, if you haven't heard us a lot, that's why I'm making her take a couple drinks here.
So I will tell you, I actually enjoy the flavor of this. It's less sweet than like a rosé wine. And I feel like that's good for like the end of a fancy meal or whatever. This, I think you could do a ton of stuff with, depending on what you served it with. I think it's delicious.
I do too.
And it's pink enough that I'm feeling
romantic.
Well, talk about Ed Gein.
When we get to your second one, maybe you'll see that it is way more pink. Because when I poured it, it was a lot more pink.
Well, I'm not the biggest Valentine's Day fan. Once I had kids, I tried to make Valentine's Day a thing. And so I try very hard to embrace the love and the pink and the red and the hearts and all that garbage for one day a year. So that's my attempt right now.
For such a romantic-y Valentine's Day episode, what's funny is I don't believe you and I have done any dates for Valentine's.
We've never ever celebrated Valentine's Day ever.
I think we did go on a date last year. That might have been the first time.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
And that's how
It's just
special
not
it
our
was.
thing.
We don't even remember.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well,
you've got your reasons, though.
I
And as a man, I am totally fine with that.
Yes. Well, I would say a perfectly pink drink with a hint of love is perfectly paired with a horrendous story with the slightest hint of ironic love that just makes you go. So, Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to George Philip Gein and his wife, Augusta Wilhelmine.
1906.
Yes.
You know what's weird is there's people born in 2006, kind of the same thing, you know? Beginning of the century.
Yeah.
And some days, people are going to be like, 2006, jeez. Anyways,
we will be long dead. George and Augusta already had one son, Henry George Gein, who was 5 years old when little Ed was welcomed into the Gein household. At different times in his life, George, who's Ed's father, worked as a carpenter, a tanner, and an insurance salesman. Augusta actually ran a small grocery store. Now, the household in which the two Gein boys were raised would not have been described as nurturing or joyful or really any other adjective one would use to describe a balanced, loving home. Ed's father, George, was a timid alcoholic, and his mother, Augusta, was a severely religious woman who was verbally abusive to all three men in her life.
Jeez. What do you mean by what's a timid alcoholic? Does that mean he's timid on his alcoholism, or is he a timid man?
He's a timid man.
Alcohol?
I think the idea is that most men drink alcohol and they become the aggressor. Right. And he wasn't. He just drank probably to endure Augusta. Now, it has been speculated that Augusta realized early on in her life that she had made a mistake in marrying George. But due to her devout Lutheran beliefs, she did not believe divorce was an option. So hatred for her husband then grew into hatred for all men, except for her son, Ed.
And he has brothers?
He has one older brother, Henry, who I'm assuming she was like, it's too late for Henry. And they're literally
screwed him up enough.
Were sources where it was like she hated men, so she was going to make sure Ed never really turned into a man.
Ooh, all right.
Now, Augusta raised both her boys to believe that the world was full of evil, and it was other women who were to blame. According to Ed's mother, women were vessels of sin. She also made sure that both boys knew that drinking, George's favorite thing, and immorality, specifically sexual, were instruments used by the devil to lead people to destruction.
Mm-hmm.
In 1915, or around 1915, Augusta, thinking that La Crosse was a sinkhole of filth, decided the family needed to move.
Wait.
My husband just made this face and I saw it out of the corner of my eye. So they were living in La Crosse and she deemed that place a sinkhole of filth.
My mind, I don't know if it was the way you said it or just the way I heard it. A thought that lacrosse became big, the sport lacrosse became big in their town. And they were like, we cannot do this. We're not going to live in a lacrosse-loving town.
No, the town became a sinkhole of filth.
With a whole bunch of
floozy
sexy
women,
lacrosse players and all the floozy
drinking, immorality, abounded.
Field sport.
So she decided that the family needed to move. Augusta sold the small store.
What was it about lacrosse? Not the sport, but the town.
I think it was more urban, and there were just too many people around.
The urban folks.
Yeah, but I don't think it's urban like we think of urban. I think it was like, there are girls here showing their ankles.
It was
we must get away.
It was street youths running around.
1915 street youth. Clean cut. Probably not cursing.
Everybody's shirts tucked in.
It's all fine, but not for Augusta. So she sold the store that she actually ran, and the family packed up and relocated to a white farmhouse outside of Plainfield, Wisconsin. Now, living in that farmhouse, Ed would only leave the family property to go to school. As such, Ed grew into a very socially awkward young man who was prone to weird fits of laughter. And that awkwardness, in combination with the speech impediment, which was caused by a growth on his tongue and a lazy eye,
Oh my God.
meant that Ed was not exactly well liked or accepted by his school classmates. And after 8th grade, Ed dropped out of school and just simply worked odd jobs full time. Poor Ed.
This is like literally the origin story for the villain in a comic book.
It's kind of funny because so Charlie Hunnam is going to play Ed Gein in the next installment of Monster.
Yeah.
And so, like, associating those two things together is super strange. Because you, like, see
Charlie's
pictures.
Too attractive
That's
to
what
play
I'm saying.
something like that.
You see pictures of Ed Gein and you're like, he's not so bad. And then you see another picture of Ed Gein and you're like, why is his eye like that?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
It's unsettling.
Jax from Sons of Anarchy playing a guy that has a growth on his tongue and a lazy eye.
Who just bursts into laughter at awkward moments.
The laughter I could see because, I mean, Heath Ledger was able to dive into someone that went into fits of laughter, but, was Joker also a little inspired by Ed Gein?
Oh, interesting. I didn't come across Joker, but there is an AHS character who was also inspired by Ed Gein, but I didn't think he was noticeable enough.
Oh, really? Which
it's in my notes upstairs. I don't know.
Now, we're big, we've said it before, but we're big fans of that show.
Now, there was nothing too alarming that stands out to me in terms of his actions as an adolescent that would suggest Ed was going to grow up and become a monster. Like, he wasn't killing animals, lighting fires, pooping in jars, like none of that. But there are a few stories, however, from his childhood that could offer some insight into why Ed eventually became Ed Gein, worthy of a spot on my serial killer bracelet. So the first one is there's a story where Ed is alleged to have snuck into the family slaughterhouse where he watched his mother slaughter a pig. Like, she cut this pig who was hanging upside down open so that the guts and the insides fell out onto the ground. And as a result of that
cleaning the pig,
extremely unsettling scene, Ed actually orgasmed.
Oh, geez. What?
She cleaned the pig. He cleaned something else.
Wait.
Just cleaned it right out.
How old was him?
It didn't give an age.
Was him? Was he?
It didn't give an age.
I just don't even understand how that's possible. I mean, unless...
I told you were going to eat this.
Unless he just had never done it and had years and years and years of backup.
I think part of it is that his mom completely confused him because she said, like, wanting women, feeling these feelings is all sinful, is all wrong. Don't look at women. They're going to lead you astray. Like, they're awful. And so he probably spent all of his time, like, suppressing. And in one very weird moment, with, like, years of pent-up frustration, he was like, oh, so that's what does it for me.
Weird. Is it too early for me to ask, or should I let you finish? These early stories in his life, how were they documented?
So Ed is going to spend a significant amount of time in mental facilities one day. And I'm assuming that many, many individuals tried to speak to him.
Probably was doctor notes. I mean, I'm sure that's...
It could also be folklore. Like, when his house is eventually discovered, I could imagine, like, little Johnny, who lived down the road, telling tales. But just hang on to the way one of his victims is discovered before we go. That story isn't true.
Certainly. Curious if he had a diary too or something like that, or kept notes himself.
I would think that I would come across that. And it's so far removed. We're almost 120 years after his birth.
And so it's just, sources are just stories of it without knowing exactly where they came from.
Now, there's a second story. When Ed was 12, there was an instance where his mother discovered him masturbating. And as a punishment, she aggressively grabbed his genitals.
Oh, geez.
Which is also probably incredibly confusing to a 12-year-old.
What?
Yes. Now, despite his mother's verbal berating and rude genitalia grabbing, her domineering control of the household didn't really seem to bother Ed. Ed idolized her, and while his brother eventually would demonstrate an ability to stand up to their mom, Ed never ever would. In 1940, Ed's father passed away after suffering from a heart attack, leaving his 2 sons and widow to carry on at the farm without him. But perhaps not all 3 of them for long. You see, Henry had begun to date a divorced mother of 2 from town, and he was actually starting to plan to move from the farm into the home where she was living so he could live with her. Now, during this period of time, Henry increasingly would share his feelings about their overbearing mother and the oddness that was their overbearing mother's hold on Ed. And the first death suspiciously linked to Ed is actually that of his brother. In 1944, both Ed and Henry were out in their farm fields burning away the crop residue, which is the leftover plant material after crops have been harvested. It's a cheaper way, basically, to clear your fields for next year's planting. According to Ed, the fire got away from him, burning out of control. And after a time, he realized his brother Henry was nowhere to be seen. After calling for help, firefighters arrived at the Gein farmland and were somewhat confused when Ed led them directly to where Henry's body was located, found face down in the marsh. The cause of death for Henry would eventually be determined to be asphyxiation, which is suffocation, and was ruled an accident despite some unexplained head wounds discovered on Henry's corpse.
And of course, back in good old,
1944.
Oh, 44?
Mm-hmm.
So they're both adults.
Yeah.
Just working the farm. I'm imagining kids doing this.
No.
Dang. Yeah, even in 1944, not the greatest forensic teams out there. Yeah. Well, I will say this. I am looking at pictures of Ed Gein because I just couldn't place it. I get him and the fish guy mixed up when I'm imagining who's who.
I think it's Ed Fish.
Is it Ed Fish?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, the guy with the last name Fish. The one that was a horror hotel, right?
Fish is the guy in New York who killed kids.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Actually, those 3, I kind of mix and match their stories in my head.
Albert Fish.
Albert.
How did I not know that?
Oh,
I know Albert. He's also on my bracelet.
Ed Gein's not a bad looking dude.
Until his eye falls away.
Well, there's one.
And you don't have to hear him talk.
Does it say that? Like, as an adult, did he have a floating eye?
I think you can see his floating eye in some of his pictures.
Yeah,
like,
I see one where he's got the lazy eyelid, but it looks like his eyeballs, the pupils the irises are in the right place. Most of these, it looks like they're pretty on. But I guess, Charlie Hunnam's, I'm guessing he's going to probably go into some, what do you call that type of acting?
Method acting.
Yeah. To play this role. He's probably going to get all gaunt because that's one thing about Ed Gein.
We're going to talk about what happened to Ed Gein in this period of life. Now, after Henry's death, Ed got his mother all to himself, but only for about a year. In December of 1945, Augusta actually died from a stroke, and Ed was completely alone for the first time in his entire life. And it was most likely during this time that Ed began his descent into a madness from which he could never return. Out of either his love for his deceased mother or because of the painful despair he felt at having lost her, Ed boarded up his mother's bedroom so that it would be kept as a pristine shrine. Like, he boarded up most of the house that she had ever been in. He himself moved into a small bedroom off the main floor kitchen. He basically inhabited 3 rooms, leaving the rest as some sort of homage to his mom.
But he could never go in them, right? Because
he never went in them. On his own, Ed turned to researching Nazi medical experiments, including head shrinking. He turned to studying human anatomy books. He would read countless horror novels and viewed pornography just to keep his lonely self occupied.
I wonder what kind of pornography was available then.
1940 pornography, like Marilyn Monroe, right?
Is that around the Playboy?
Mm-hmm. So it's nothing crazy, but for Ed, it was probably like, what?
Well, yeah,
vessels of sin.
Yeah.
Now, despite being alone, Ed never attempted to go out to socialize or make any effort to meet women for the purpose of dating. And Ed would make it about 18 months without the presence of his mother in the home before he took matters into his own hands. He needed to cure the emptiness he felt. So Ed took to the cemetery where his mother was buried one night, and with him, he took a pry bar. From the grave, beneath the headstone bearing the engraved word, Mother, Ed Gein removed his mother's head in order to take it home with him. And as the years went on, neighbors would notice a change in Ed Gein's appearance, which you alluded to, and his behavior, starting with his stench and ending with his increasingly socially odd behavior when he would encounter them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the farmhouse, which once was impeccable under the leadership of Augusta, became overrun with dirt and debris, appearing more like the home that you would associate with a hoarder nowadays than a clean 1940s farmhouse.
Did you say dirt and
debris?
Oh,
if you Google
dirt and brie.
Oh,
a lot
like
of
the cheese?
brie cheese around.
No,
which,
those
that's got
Wisconsin
its
people
own.
like cheese curds.
It's got its own smell, that brie, but
No, you look at pictures of these rooms that he was living in, and
really,
yeah, they're pretty nasty. My friend Amanda would say they're nasty.
nasty.
Now, the depths of what Ed Gein was actually doing would not be discovered until November 1957. Now, on that day, in November 1957, Bernice Warden, a 58-year-old widow, went to work at her hardware store. It was from that shift that Bernice would simply disappear. Warden's work truck would be found abandoned on a lover's lane sometime later, just outside of Plainfield, Wisconsin.
When you say a lover's lane, is that because it's one of many lanes named Lover's Lane, or
I'm assuming it's
is
where
it just around town
young couples go to get brown chicken, brown cow. Lover's Lane.
It's so funny. Like I think those probably still exist.
Lookout Mountain in Colorado is absolutely a Lover's Lane.
Yeah, 100%. But we just don't call anything Lover's Lane. I wonder if people in small towns do.
I don't know. Let us know. We're city folk. We're rural, urban youths.
I mean, that's the general population of our listeners.
Yeah.
Rural folk.
Oh, They
Just
like
kidding.
our
I have
down
no
homey way of talking. Now, Warden's son, who is actually a sheriff's deputy, became almost immediately suspicious of Ed Gein simply because of his strange behavior and reputation.
I
And
bet it was that weirdo that lives over in the white barn over there.
wouldn't you know it? Warden's last customer was rumored to be a weird farmer in need of 1 gallon of antifreeze.
Hits his partner on the stone. See, I told you.
It's Ed Gein. Now, when officers showed up at Gein's farm to question him, they were not prepared for the house of horrors that awaited them. Warden's body was discovered dead, decapitated, hung by its ankles, and gutted like a newly killed deer. Or perhaps it was more like an eerie homage to what Ed witnessed his mother doing to a pig decades earlier in the family slaughterhouse.
All right. Just say it again, what they found.
Okay. Her body was hanging.
I didn't say it slower.
I just feel like it's necessary. She was dead. She was decapitated. She was hung by her ankles, and she had been gutted.
Jeez.
And one of my resources was like, well, it was deer hunting season in Wisconsin. And I was like, or it was him trying to recreate what happened to him when he watched his mother gut a deer, right?
A pig.
Yeah, a pig, sorry.
Wow. So this one lady goes missing.
Yep.
They immediately figure out who it is.
Yeah, because if you're going to F
Way to go,
around,
yeah.
you're going to find out. I guarantee you, weird old Ed Gein was just drawing attention to himself.
Yeah, I wonder what all he was doing to make him think of him right away.
I don't know.
It's probably those random fits of laughter he had around town.
I don't know. I do kind of feel bad for him a little bit.
I wish I could do a Wisconsin accent because it would do it much better service.
I should just end every paragraph
Don't
with
you know?
"Don't you know?"
Don't you know?
Now,
We were over at the barn, don't you know? Ed Gein just, now I'm going in a weird accent. Ed Gein was over there just laughing like
they actually,
hyena.
several sources documented how, like, the sheriff walked in, which you have to picture 48? 1957, and his, like, sheriffy walk.
Oh, yeah.
And he
probably had
literally
cowboy boots on,
immediately
was massive and had a mustache.
runs outside to vomit.
Oh.
Like, he cannot handle the situation that is Ed Gein's house because
So we don't know anything else.
We just Warden's body.
We've got
hanging
a pig cleaning styled hanging body.
Yes. Now, in addition to that corpse, investigators discovered numerous bowls made from human skulls, lampshades made from human faces, and chairs upholstered with human skin. Told you it was going to get romantic. Just joking. That's so gross.
No, I like it.
He doesn't.
No, I do. I think.
And what's particular is one of them was described as like a lampshade made out of like tattooed skin. So he was like, oh, this is going to make a pretty lampshade. Do you see these flowers, Mom?
I've got.
Oofed. We're not done.
I've got skin with patterns now.
Do you want me just to give you the list and then you can respond? Because this list is pretty extensive.
No, and but when I say, I just want to clarify. When I say I like it, there actually is kind of this sick part of me. I think just a sick part of humans where you do kind of like hearing about it because it's such an anomaly.
It's also
that you can kind of withstand hearing about. Now, to be good homeboy sheriff who never sees anything like this, nor has probably really heard much like this outside of maybe what the Nazis did, just war stories and stuff. Definitely could never imagine coming across it in real life.
Okay.
But when you're just hearing about it, and especially since it was done such a long time ago,
Can I
it's
tell
kinda
you?
like, ooh, tell me more.
This is why I enjoy this, because for those of you who don't know, my husband is a real estate agent, and he oftentimes has to go into these houses where he's trying to earn a client. He's also trying to be honest about things inside the home. And I could just imagine him walking into this house. Like, let's say Ed Gein was like, hey, I'd like to sell a farmhouse. And my husband would be like, that is a great lampshade. It's fantastic.
Well, they certainly have
Ooh,
a
that smell, though. We're going to
particular
have to do
style in
something
here.
about that smell. And that's what that makes me think of when hearing my husband talk about it. Now,
yeah, that smell though, I feel like that's a
which
smell you're like,
neighbors commented on.
know what?
They're like, he
Just
just stayed.
burn the house down and use it for lamp.
Hang on to that. Now, Ed Gein had also mounted 9 death masks, which it took me a while to determine what a death mask was. It's basically the face of another human being that he would wear as masks that he had mounted on his walls.
Wow.
And investigators uncovered sets of human noses. I don't know why I said sets. Human noses, sets of lips, and a belt made of human nipples.
Now, there's a style that I'm surprised didn't catch on.
Do you remember the bottle cap belts?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same.
It kind of is, isn't it?
But no. Now,
An ode to Ed Gein, we bring you the bottle cap belt.
Now, in the search of the home, or at least the 3 rooms that Ed had inhabited since the passing of his mother, officers found a collection of female genitalia and a tom-tom drum covered in stretched human skin.
So he pretty much just human skinned everything.
Yes. Now
Wait, you didn't mention one though, because I did.
Oh, I'm not done.
I popped up.
Will you wait till I'm done?
But yeah, no, I'm sure you're going to say this. But if you weren't, I was going to be a little disappointed.
Now, Ed had fastened a pair of leggings out of human skin and a vest made.
Pair of leggings?
Just wait.
Like pants.
Yes, but we have to do this collectively to create the picture.
Wearing someone
No,
else's
just wait.
legs.
Just wait. You're ruining it. Ed had fastened a pair of leggings out of human skin and a vest made from the torso of a human female, equipped with breasts and all. He actually would don this human suit and dance in the moonlight.
How do we know that?
We just do.
Dancing in the moonlight.
Everybody feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine natural sight. It's not, Ed. Take the suit off and go to bed.
Look, Ed Gein is ahead of his time.
No. No, we're not done. I'm assuming you're talking about the gloves. Are you looking at the gloves?
No.
Okay.
But everything you're describing, I mean, even his fashion. He's getting into a BDSM type
I feel
fashion.
like people are going to hate us for saying these things. Now, skulls were fastened to the top of his bedposts, and there was even an armchair made of human arm bones. And the reason why I feel okay telling you this in jest is most of them, he didn't kill. He dug their bodies up. And yes, it's not okay to disrespect the dead, but he was dedicated to his craft. That's all I'm going to say. Now,
and are they 100% sure that he wasn't killing?
No, they are not 100% sure, which makes us a-holes once again. He, which will come up later, he will admit to murdering 2 women, which we haven't even talked about the second, and say that he robbed nearly 40 graves, and then he would skin the deceased's body. But let's just continue, and you and I can.
But there's just especially then, I mean, preservation of the bodies aren't.
I don't. So his dad was a tanner, which means treating skin.
Recently, well.
I feel like there's.
I guess obituaries could tell you exactly who died recently.
Yeah.
And they dig up the hole, throw it in, and you have fresh dirt that you can then dig up, put it back, and nobody would even realize.
Yes. And at the end of the day, I think everybody has settled on the same. He was trying to recreate the presence of his mom. And so whether that was through owning female body parts, wearing female body parts, becoming his mom, that was his intent.
I think maybe that was the beginning of it. Everything. We've got a list here that we're moving beyond recreating his mom. We're moving into...
I feel like I've already been rude enough to the Wisconsin Deceased Women's Club.
Then let's not like give him a cop out. He's just a psychopath who's
psycho.
Literally psycho, and beyond, because just even the skulls on top of his bedposts. Like
he literally
he's
ate
obsessed with kind of
cereal out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh. Could you imagine him hosting a dinner party? This is interesting, Ed. What kind of bowl is this?
I wonder if it's
look up pictures. It's a face.
Boy, you're making me want to read a book about him or something.
All right.
I'm curious. I bet you there is some psychologists out there or a lot that have tried to figure out why is he doing this stuff. But there's something about like this feeling of dominance now, where he's never had that. His mom's always dominated.
I have a psychological diagnosis for you coming.
Okay, sweet. But you are missing one thing. Are you done with the list?
Yeah.
I mean,
what is it?
9 vulvas in a shoebox.
I think that's a collection of genitalia, and I didn't want to say vulvas.
Why? It's such a fun word to say. There's literally a car that almost has the same name.
Now,
Volvo.
Yes.
Wait, what about this? A young girl's dress and the vulvas of 2 females judged to have been about 15 years old. Oh, so he just had, she's digging up little girls too.
Now, Ed would disclose that in addition to murdering Bernice Worden, he was actually responsible for killing one other woman in 1954. Mary Hogan was a saloon keeper who Ed shot and subsequently killed before dragging her body home on a sled. Because that's the way you do it in Wisconsin, folks.
Did he go back in time to like 1875 and go to the saloon and shoot the person and bring him back on a sled because there was no other way to do anything?
Nope, that's how he did it in 54.
Who?
I don't know.
So, like, saloon is a...
Wisconsin. You know how I do this? Time travel, just to explain weird things. Wisconsin.
Have you ever met anyone in your life that has called a bar a saloon? I know that there are bars that are called, like, it's in their name.
No, but
saloon.
I was born in the 80s, and that was 30 years later. So
that's not that far off from that.
I know. That makes me so sad.
I just say it because saloons are, I mean, that's Wild Wild West.
Well, I can't. I don't have those answers for you. Gein would admit to exhuming 40 different corpses, but at the time investigators searched his home, they believed that they could account for 10 different sets of human remains.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Which makes me go, could you imagine being dug up and Ed Gein was like, nope, not touching this one. And you're just like, oh, even in death, nobody wants me. Just kidding. It's Valentine's Day. All right. Now.
Wait, I actually was going to ask that.
But
because
how
it's quite
they would
an
know, I don't
extensive
know.
List.
I chalk it up to small town. 1 vulva, 2 vulva, 3 vulva, 4, 5 vulva, 6 vulva, 7 vulva more. 10 people. Just kidding. It's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's.
If we can't laugh
a little,
about
it's Ed Gein.
Dead bodies in the 50s, what can we laugh about? It seems like a lot, though. Like not the 10 bodies. It seems like a lot of what, like the things he's made. It just doesn't feel like 10 bodies is enough.
I feel like they basically counted 10 faces had 42 vulvas, and we're like, that sounds about 10.
Sounds about 10.
Write it up as 10, Chief. We're going to write it up as 10.
Although,
why didn't they go count dug up graves?
yeah.
Somebody touched this. Maybe we should look.
Yeah.
And nobody did anything.
So he definitely probably killed Mary Hogan, though, because they could probably
I think he killed 2 people.
Mary Hogan definitely.
We're going to talk about how he gets charged with her murder. That's the only murder Ed Gein has ever charged.
They definitely could have.
Yes.
Like, they have no idea what happened to this woman. She disappeared.
No, her body is hanging upside down, cut by the ankles.
Wait, what was the name of the saloon lady? I'm getting mixed
Oh, no,
up
you're
here.
right. Nope, you're right.
Okay.
Bernice Warden, her body is hanging.
I finally,
Hogan,
I'm actually tracking. Usually this is opposite. If this is the first episode you listen to.
Usually I'm on top of everything and he has no idea what I'm saying.
I'm just like, hey, I'm asking questions
Look at his
for the
face.
listener.
He's so bored listening to her. Yeah, we read your comments.
Yeah. Mary Hogan. He
never gets charged with her murder because
really?
I don't think
but they say,
can.
I mean, in this list,
pick out.
In this list, it says Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box.
Okay, can I tell you this? They don't have DNA to connect it, and just Google Ed Gein's death masks. It could be anybody. Like it literally. Do you remember that story where George Bush's face mask is a decapitated head in Game of Thrones? And they're like, it looks like George W. Bush. That's what they look like. They don't actually look like the people they look like. And in whatever year it was, I'm sure they're like, this is my mom. Maybe.
But you got to wonder, especially with this new show coming out.
Oh, I can't wait.
And all the technology that we have now, especially AI, being able to, I'm sure somebody's made a program that could probably be like, look at this. Half of a face, finish it. Or look at this, just, you know, the skin of this face. Give me what it looked like. Because they can recreate like what Jesus looked like.
Well, using the cloth of Turin or whatever, is
there's the other one. I mean, and they've been trying to do that
forever.
We cannot
put Jesus in our Ed Gein episode. I am putting my Valentine foot down.
Baby, Jesus is everywhere and everything.
Okay.
He is omnipresent and omniscient.
So Ed Gein is never going to get charged with anything except murdering Bernice Warden. But before he could go to trial, Ed was deemed mentally unfit. And as a result, Gein was sent to a state hospital. At that time, doctors diagnosed Ed with schizophrenia. Which, if you've ever watched Psycho, he literally, Norman Bates, hears his mom talking to him.
Yeah. He's actually talking for her.
Yeah, which is
because you can hear like it.
Yeah,
the scenes that they show where you can hear another human's voice.
Yeah, it's his voice.
It's essentially Mrs. Doubtfire. You know, when
that's literally the suit that he was making, but instead of cloth, he used human remains. But
what if that is the greatest comedy trick in the world? They're like, how do we make Ed Gein funny?
I also like this
came up
list.
With Mrs. Doubtfire.
Norman Bates, Leatherface, Buffalo Bill, Mrs. Doubtfire. Right? The Gein farmhouse actually burned down in 1958, most likely due to arson. And then Ed Gein's tombstone, which we're jumping ahead a little bit, would be a source of vandalism as well. Pieces of it were chipped away by weirdos, I'm assuming like us, until the entire tombstone was actually stolen in 2000. But fret not. The tombstone was recovered near Seattle, Washington in 2001 and now safely resides in some sort of storage at the Waushara County Sheriff's Department. So I'm going to recap for my husband. Ed Gein was found incompetent to stand trial and was sent to a state facility. But 10 years later, Ed would be deemed sane. I'm assuming because he was doused with medication enough to stand trial.
Is there anybody else that's committed this amount of murders that was diagnosed schizophrenic that could stand trial?
Yes, I think so.
Interesting.
Now, a judge, if you're charged with a crime, you can choose a bench trial or a jury trial. I'm assuming he chose bench. Found Gein guilty, but by reason of insanity. And so instead of being sent to prison, Ed was sent to a state facility where he lived out the rest of his days, which is something that I have not heard of. So he knew he was wrong, but his mental psychosis contributed to his actions. So he doesn't go to prison. He goes to a state facility, assuming. Now, on July 26th, 1984, Ed Gein, the man who had come to be known as the Butcher of Plainfield, or the Plainfield Ghoul, died of complications from cancer at the Medota Mental Health Institute. And the final nail in this disturbing but still kind of sad love story is that most people believe Ed Gein died a virgin, which could answer some questions about really what went on or didn't go on at that Plainfield farmhouse between Ed and his mother, which would one day create a monster. Happy Valentine's Day. Mwah.
Ends with he died a virgin.
He probably did.
Which is, I suppose, sad, but also, I don't know. I'm guessing his mom took his virginity.
I don't think so.
You go that insane? No. Of course, I don't know. Maybe for you to go that insane, she didn't. She just grabbed your balls often.
Isaac Newton died a virgin. Great contributions to science.
How do we know that?
Beethoven, virgin.
Oh, come on. Is it
Elizabeth the First
in their diaries?
Virgin. Virgin.
Virgin.
Hans Christian Andersen, virgin.
So,
Nikola Tesla, virgin.
I don't believe that.
J. Edgar Hoover, virgin.
No, I think there's
Andy Warhol, virgin.
J. Edgar is the CIA
Joan of
guy,
Arc,
right?
Virgin. He was the head of the FBI.
FBI, that's right. I think there's rumors that Hoover was
Immanuel
gay.
Kant, virgin.
Pretty sure Hoover was gay.
All those are virgins. Ed Gein, virgin.
Okay, so the moral of the story is stay a virgin. Good chances you great things in life.
Or horrific things. Roll those dice.
Or it might go against you.
Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day massacre, people. That's the story I should have done. What the heck? I say it every year. Happy Valentine's Day Street Massacre.
I know. Didn't we do it?
No.
We didn't?
No.
Did we not do a Valentine's last year?
No.
I thought we did it.
All right. Anyway.
Damn. I
We're
would have
back.
told you we should have done that.
Whether you want us to be or not.
I think Ed Gein for Valentine's Day and
sweet.
motherly love. I'm glad we kept the episode lighthearted because
Hate us if you want.
just the idea of what we're doing
It's fine.
pretty
Hate
dark
is
comedy.
gross.
Dark comedy. All right, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Go tell your mothers you love them.